Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and thank you so much for joining for the first session of the day at the Brussels room. And we're going to be talking right now about disrupt or be disrupted, strategic innovation for security and competitiveness. And the session is held in partnership with the International Visegrad Fund. And I would like to welcome to the stage Moderator Réka Szemerkényi, Director of International Affairs, the Equilibrium Institute, and her panelists.
Well, thank you so much for coming and starting this day with us. I think I'm very excited and honored to be able to launch this discussion, which I think is on a topic that really touches our everyday decision-making and businesses and work and probably also even personal lives. So I'm very excited to have a fantastic panel for us today. But the topic, I think, before I introduce the panel to you, is really intriguing, because the topic is something that goes beyond just what we think of innovation. Disruptive innovation and strategic innovation are different from the basic understanding. They have several main points, and I would like to just highlight that as a kind of a startup for our discussion. One is, how do we measure whether something is disruptive and strategic or strategic in its consequence? It can be a strategic innovation if it has a systematic approach, if it has a future-oriented or repercussions for the future or consequences for the future, if it focuses on values and it focuses on longer-term values than immediate impact, and if it is integrated into a strategic thinking in any field from business to politics and government. So on this basis, I think we have the best panel to cover these issues, because we have a panel that covers both geographically and professionally all the areas that we need to think about in innovation. On my left, we have Mr. Wolfgang Zink, who is coming from being based in Germany, but with a company that focuses on Germany and a personal experience on Germany, France, the UK, European countries practically, and from a field of innovation in government, disruptive and strategic innovation in government primarily. Next to him is John Hultquist, Chief Analyst from Google Threat Intelligence Group, who is coming from the United States, so from the other side of the pond, with over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity AI and understanding what really cyber espionage means and how this can be fought against. So the wealth of experience is fantastic there as well, and I am honored to have him coming from my alma mater, teaching at the Johns Hopkins University in Washington, D.C. at SAIS, yes. Next, left to him is our friend from Poland, Łukasz Chaberski, who is representing Polish airports, CEO of Polish airports, but having a great experience in infrastructure, how an infrastructure that is originally civilian is really strategic, and what it means, what the innovation is necessary to ensure this strategically important infrastructure. And last but certainly not least, I think I'm very honored to have Mr. Symeon Tsomokos, who is founder and president of Delphi Economic Forum Greece. We all are honored to have you there, covering also a very important area of Europe. Southeast Europe, I think, is a part of the world that we also want to and need to understand better. So in addition to his Delphi experience, the regional experience is a very fundamentally important for our discussion today. So with this introduction, let me ask you, maybe from left to right, if it's okay, if there is any particular starting thought, maybe from John, starting with, I'm sorry, okay, with with Wolfgang. we have talked a lot about innovation in government. And of course, all of the innovation that we have needed is in a special light after 2022, with understanding, the challenges and impacts of the war of Russia against Ukraine. So I would like to ask your thoughts first. How do you see how these innovation consequences are reflected in government thinking? Should they be? Are they impacting government, innovation in government? Are they more disruptive than strategic? How do you see the situation after the third year of this war on government thinking in Europe in general?
Thank you, Réka, and thank you as well for the opening question. And I would like to kick off the ball by providing my view on what the term disruption might mean in that sense, because I think it's a helpful one when trying to get our arms around this topic. Everybody's talking about disruption, but maybe not everybody knows that the term was coined initially by a Harvard professor back in the 90s regarding innovation. A person called Clayton Christensen. And he basically made a distinction between sustained innovation and disruptive innovation. And the disruptive innovation has the characteristics that it's rather low end, rather at the lower end of the market, and then making its way up. So think about Netflix versus movie theaters. That's disruptive. The iPhone, we could argue, never been very cheap, never been very affordable, but it was accessible to the masses. And the iPhone moment definitely was a disruptive moment in our recent technology history. So if we take it from there and say disruptive innovation is an innovation that is rather low-end, accessible to the masses, and we apply this and look at the war of Russia against Ukraine and the Russian invasion, we can definitely see the way that unmanned systems, drones, particularly air drones in that regard, but it can also be ground drones or water drones, underwater drones, unfold in their impact. We can see an element of disruptive innovation, for sure. And this is challenging to the Western government world. Why? First, because we do have a very settled regulatory framework. And the framework is there to protect given rights of given people, given technologies, given places, and so on and so forth. It's not geared towards changing fast, welcoming new technologies, and embracing them in a positive way. So it's changing our regulatory framework, and regulatory framework is very hard to change. Second is challenging our military thinking, because our military thinking traditionally is top-down, and it's long-term. We're talking about decades of planning cycles. And drones, as we see them with innovation cycles of whatever, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe 3 months, are a challenge in that regard. So military thinking must adapt fast. And the third one is traditional government innovation policies also have difficulties with that kind of innovation because they're also rather long-term, compliance-driven, rather bureaucratic in the way grants are given out. You can apply and then you deliver against these grants and the specific terms of reference and so on and so forth. It's not up for surprises. And with that regard, I think the development of unmanned systems as displayed in the war between Russia and Ukraine is a very good showcase to say that we need to change the way we think, we plan, and we experiment.
I'm not sure if I'm happier with this than we were before, because it really raises a number of big problems. And I think this is why we have to see...
Sorry for that.
what we're up against, right? And I think this is why our discussion is very important. As a short follow-up, what would you say as a most important element that can help us to be up for surprises? To be looking at the positive side, to be looking at this as an inspiration or as a possibility?
I think we do not need a lot of groundbreaking new research. If you combine a few ingredients from proven concepts, you get very far. One would be to have courage and think rather in portfolio approaches than into specifically planned micro projects. So the idea, like DARPA is doing, for example, to have a broad portfolio of projects, of endeavors, and you don't know which of these 100 will succeed, but you know that there will be 2, 3, or 4 that really go through the roof, is one concept. And that is challenging our bureaucracy and our framework as we have it. Basically, all Western European countries have tried to copy the model of DARPA, and everybody has kind of a wannabe twin sister or brother, but a crippled one. That's one. The other one is to think in terms of ecosystems rather than of controllable spaces where everything is government-driven or driven by a specific grant or a specific program. Rather think in terms of openness with academia, with private research, with public research, and so on and so forth. And give that room to experiment. And these kind of projects count for the most rewarding ones for me as well professionally. I used to design a few industry and research centers in Europe and beyond. And seeing this unfold, also in a way that is not predictable right from the start, is very, very rewarding. And if you combine these two ingredients, you already get a pretty good recipe, I believe.
That's something to continue to come back to. Let me jump now to John on the other side of the Atlantic, because I believe if any of the experiences pop up in anybody's mind of the last couple of years, it's the immensity and the seriousness of strategic cyber threats. So what would you say as a consequence of this, and how this can be or has been disrupting or creating strategic innovation?
Well, I think the interesting disruptive event is actually disruption, right? Disruption by cyber means, and we're seeing more and more of that. And there were actually two, I think, major events that sort of brought that about. One was suddenly cryptocurrency came around, and it basically allowed the monetization, direct monetization for criminals. Previously, cybercrime was about essentially fraud. Somebody would go out and steal a bunch of records and then monetize them for fractions of a penny per record. What changed was the ability to sort of monetize directly with a target or a victim and ask them directly to pay. And what that has led to is a sort of slow escalation that started with people targeting single computers, and they realized they could target entire networks for disruption. They realized, you actually have to invest time in a target. You can't just, they have to actually hack it before they ask for money. And so you want to make sure that they're going to pay. So what do? You go and target somebody who's more likely to pay, and that's critical infrastructure, right? And so we're seeing generally more and more of that. Now, the response to that is go arrest the criminals. But the other really important piece here is that there's a safe haven. If it was hard to arrest criminals in Russia before the war, it's certainly hard now, right? We know that many of them are working alongside the FSB. The FSB is responsible for law enforcement. It's also responsible for intelligence collection. You can see where that goes. And so these two events have probably led to a real national security consequence for all of us. Not all attacks are state-directed. Most are not. They're just to make money. But they recognize that critical infrastructure is an opportunity for them. But it also creates this wonderful cover for action for state-directed attacks. We do know that the Russian intelligence services are working with these actors, that in some cases they are probably state-directed attacks, or at least state-acknowledged, or the state is very happy to see it happen. And so it's created this really strange environment where critical infrastructure attacks are happening from Russia, and we're sort of powerless to stop them.
Again, We're getting more and more gloomy.
Sorry.
But I think it's a very important element that you highlighted, and there's several very important elements in what you highlighted. But one that I would like to ask you to go into that is that if you see this as more obvious and not even hidden that it's coming from Russia, so it's kind of not a consideration to cover these, I would assume it gives us a better leverage to respond to or try to detect these. Is it better or worse?
I think that it's very difficult to fight this because it's also coming from a marketplace. And what I mean by that is essentially somebody gained access to your computer and then they sold it to somebody else who hacked it, who then worked with a third party who's a ransomware service. And even if we can disrupt any one of those actors, because it's a marketplace, they already have additional partners that can fill in those spaces. So we're fighting an entire marketplace. And that marketplace is then unreachable physically. So even if you could disrupt it, say, through cyber means, you can't necessarily, they're going to get back online in a few months max, right? And so we've got it's a sort of lasting, strengthening problem that we're facing.
Wow, there's a lot to discuss by the audience as well, so start preparing your questions, please. I'm sure that we have big questions to cover. Let me now jump back to this side of the Atlantic and ask Łukasz, if I can see, that if there's one sector that is obviously coming from a peaceful kind of commercial civilian background and is becoming strategic and is having an impact of strategic relevance for the security of an entire country is definitely air travel. So can I ask how you have seen this? We have seen in the last couple of weeks, just to think back, how much an attack on an airport practically has disabled an entire capital or entire city and had repercussions in other countries as well. What is your take on this? What do you think could be learned from this?
Thank you for your question. I'm representative of Polish airports, so we are supervise managing Chopin Airport at Warsaw, but also we are included on the 12 from 15 civil airports in Poland. So our group is 19 entities. So we are in the almost all civilian airport at the Polish side, and as you know, we are really close to the border with the Belarus and Ukraine. So. Yes, also Rzeszów. I want to also mention about Rzeszów because Rzeszów was before the war the small regional civil airport in southern east of Poland, and nowadays everyone knows Rzeszów like the biggest military, also the civilian hub on this part of Europe, and it's crucial to make the help for our neighbors, which they fight at the war with Russia. And of course, aviation is really important, not only at the economic side, but also at the secure and safety. And also before before war, we know that it's really important from the economic and that's from the also military side. But now we are sure that all the infrastructure, transport infrastructure, are crucial. So we know that also the aviation can be susceptibility because the drones, because the cyber attacks, because of many of threats. But still, we know that all of the infrastructure and our procedures and so on. They give us some resilience. Resilience nowadays is really, really important to be, because we know that for sure we will be impact, but it's important how quick and how strong we will stand off after this disruption. So, for example, in Chopin Airport is the biggest hub airport on this part of Europe. We have almost 90,000 of passengers per day, and with the employees and operational guys, we got each day we got more than 100,000 people in one place. And we have more than 600 aviation movements. So we have movements with the passengers, but we have heavy traffic with the let's say state planes. And all this is really important to have good cooperation, not only at the civil side with the air navigation service provider, because all the disruption, almost all disruption is coming from the air. We are at the port at the map near to city, but they know before something is coming, and that was at the 9th of the September that the drones was flying over our airspace. That the PANSA, so Polish Air Navigation Service provider, have some cooperation with the military guys, and they told us before that, and we can make some operational movements at the airport to carry out with the passenger, because everyone asking what's happened. Maybe it's war. So it's really important to cooperate with all stakeholders. And like I said before, for sure we will be disrupted many times, but it's important how we choose the path to work on this, and how to be more resistant.
Thank you so much. I think it's really showing how much we have to link already in our thinking a civilian airport to be like a dual-use airport, civilian and military, and to think of a very strong and established kind of cooperation. So one era when civilian airports and civilian flying was just for fun, and military was another thing, that's over.
Yes, this is really important, and this is why we are also talking with our friends at the European Union on the Commission that we should spend funds to infrastructure, aviation infrastructure nowadays, because decades of time ago they decide that the aviation should be all competitiveness, and it should be strictly the commercial one. But nowadays we are talking about the war, and that we know that all airports are needed. Also the smallest ones like the Rzeszów. It's really important to have this ready when we need it. Yes.
Which brings us back to what Wolfgang was saying about the importance of regulatory flexibility and need for a regulatory reaction to the reality on one hand, and also to what we heard from John, how we have to look at all these cyber threats as a threat targeting our civilian infrastructure as well, and how we can cooperate on this. Which will bring us to our last speaker on this first round.
Thank you, Réka, very much. Yes, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you.
And invited by the Warsaw Security Forum that we are partners. They come to our flagship event in Delphi every April. They participate in our satellite events that we organize in DC, in New York, Brussels, very many other places. I'm not an expert on the field, but allow me to offer a few opening remarks, which are rather political rather than, technical. I think we all agree that the world has changed entirely. General Petraeus said yesterday in this room that the world is in total transformation. I attended a discussion last week in New York during the United Nations Week. Gordon Brown said that from a rules-based, world, we're going to a power-based world. So this changes entirely the geopolitics, including our region. So with this, I think strategic innovation, in my humble opinion, is not longer optional. It is existential. It is no longer a luxury. It is a condition of survival. And of course, in a world of rapid acceleration of technological change, nations, I think, that fail to innovate strategically will become security independents and not providers. However, let us not delude ourselves that this requires substantial investments, institutional coherence, you mentioned this, Wolfgang, long-term thinking, Google is providing this, and all of which I hope are not in short in Brussels or in other countries. The pace of today's technological innovation, particularly in AI, in quantum computing and cyber warfare, is redrawing definitely the boundaries of geopolitical influence. And we see that very well in our region, unfortunately. And of course, I would like to say that strategic innovation thrives in ecosystems of trust, like NATO. It's a pity that we don't have the expert from NATO here today to tell us 3 more things. And in alliances, also between government, between academia, and between private sector. I think I can provide my thoughts saying that government provides strategic innovation and funding. Industry brings agility and know-how. And academic contribution is bringing cutting-edge research and talent development. So I think we need to follow all this. But I think the biggest, in my humble opinion, disruption these days may be internal. We speak about the democratic erosion, which we see in many countries. Greece paid its price during the economic crisis, 10 years between 2010 and 2020. And I'm here to follow up a question about democracy, Réka. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You really gave a wonderful overview of why and how important this discussion is. And I very much agree with you. This is an existential threat. And I very much also appreciate the thinking about this is in ecosystems. And I believe this is exactly what needs to be established. Would you have a recommendation to create a platform nationally or create international platforms of creating such ecosystems based on your perspective?
In Greece, we're trying to do this. We have not succeeded, yes. And I was planning to refer later to my comments about Greece. We try to develop an ecosystem these days on issues of energy and on issues of defense. This is of primarily importance for small countries like Greece, where NATO cannot protect us because of the Article 5 against our aggressive, neighbors that we have these days. And I think we're trying hard, but I think this is essential, Réka. I mean, Greece and every country has to create this kind of ecosystems that will, help, and develop the innovation and competitiveness for the countries.
Thank you so much. It also highlights, I think, what was referred to in Łukasz and the need for thinking of infrastructure in this dual use, understanding also dual use of our investment in it, investment in innovation in this. Because as you remarked, €1 double impact. Would you elaborate on how you see a potential for development, for innovation in your sector?
Yes, as you said, we think that one spent euro can be count twice, because in the normal times, let's say the peace times, we spend the money for the infrastructure and to make some improvements, making the AI and machine learning and so on at the airport. But at the most dangerous times, we can also use this to secure national defense and to be useful for the military side. So this is why we are thinking that the funds and the dual use infrastructure and procedures can be established at the European levels. So this is why we also need this funds, and this is one of the really important issue that we decide in Poland to build brand new greenfield big airport. Call it CPK, maybe you heard about this. And at 2032, we will establish near to Warsaw, but at the really strategic place between the two big cities, so capital of Warsaw and the city of Łódź. And this will be really good connected infrastructure with railways and highways, and without any problems to growth, no any environmental issue and so on. So this is why we will have the infrastructure readiness to collect and not only the civil traffic, but mainly military if it's needed. So and we also treat this investment like investment in our safety and secure and the future.
Which it is. And I think, as traveling a lot into various cities in Poland, always through airports or mostly through airports, I can see how much they have developed, and it's a very impressive case study of how innovation really at the air travel field has helped so far.
So till 2032, we are going to spend more than 12 billion of euros at the aviation infrastructure in Poland. So this is not only the CPK, the big one, the biggest airport hub, but also at the regional airports, and of course at the investment on the NSP. So because the old systems that supervise the airspace, even in the peacetime, are really important.
Very much appreciated. It seems like, to me, I don't want to be overly optimistic, but like a best case scenario. Wolfgang, can you tell us examples in your experience of government innovation, best practices, worst practices?
Okay, worst practices, how much time do we have? All right.
It will be enough.
Pointed only 12.
All right, take it from there. Yeah, just a few thoughts to develop that further. When listening to us in this gathering, on this podium, one thing clearly stands out, and I think this is a paradigm shift in thinking. There is no 100% protection. Cannot be achieved anymore. Maybe it never was, but certainly not any longer. So what we are talking about, and I think this is the way the narrative should unfold is rather a broad-scale resilience pattern that we need to have. You cannot prevent the first punch. It's not possible. But you need to have the ability to react, to compensate, and to continue from there. That's one thing. And that's why I believe let's not chase kind of a fata morgana and try to put everything into securing buildings and so on and so forth. They won't be completely securable. You can have certain protection levels against, let's say, drones again, to get back to my example, but you cannot achieve full-scale protection. That's one thing. The other one was, when we talk about innovation, we do think that we need to completely reinvent systems. Maybe we just take what we already can achieve from the means that we know, from the technology that we know, from the processes, the ways of working that we know, and try to secure pockets of dividends out of current systems. If you look at, for example, at the social security systems across Europe, there's so much dividend that you can have, so much workforce, labor time, and also precision in the ways these systems are run, that you can bargain a lot and spend that money and that time saved into other areas. Three is we need to have a look at policy coherence, and there comes my example. It gives me hope. We are entangled across Western democracies in a variety of oftentimes conflicting policy goals. And we are here at the Warsaw Security Forum, and security is the call of the day, and defense is the call of the day. It's not about, let's say, healthcare, it's not about childcare, it's not about whatever. But, you know, these policies, at the latest, when budget is voted, get into conflict. And we need to sort them out. We need to sort them out. And they're all legitimate. Healthcare is not number two. So we need to reconcile them, and we don't have a method right now to make sure that even if we pass well-intended laws and regulations, to make sure that they really stick into a kind of a systematic approach. So one element, and that would be a suggestion and also best practice to go further, is if we have broad policy goals, like for example, digitization, why don't we have like a checklist when passing new laws that they actually spur digitization or at least don't prevent or hinder it? We do have such schemes at the federal level and in some federal states in Germany, and yes, it's not perfect, but it's an approach to basically discipline lawmakers and to softly, gently move them into the right direction. Why don't we have that for resilience? When we pass a law about financing public hospitals and other schemes, why don't we have a resilience check to see whether these hospitals could also be converted for uses in the times of defense? What would be their role in a defense scenario? Why don't we have that? And why do we have these piecemeal approaches, bring them together, make them coherent?
That brings exactly to what I had in mind as a next step. You know, we have a vast experience of these attacks, how they have hurt, you know, our infrastructure and institutions, and of course, governments are trying to react to this. It's always the police and the thief dilemma. You know, the thieves are always ahead of us, and we're trying to sort of catch them. But we do have successes, and it's going to be a constant fight. So definitely there's no 100% protection. I very much appreciate that. But I also very much like the focus on coherence and thinking of this in the larger package from the start as a default option. And I think this is why our experiences that we have gained so far can be very helpful and very important, successes and failures. So I don't know if and I've got a zillion questions. I would like to encourage the audience as well to collect your questions, because I'm looking around, so please indicate to me if you are ready to ask a question. But before that, I would like to ask John if you can give us a little bit of an experience. You have also had successes in identifying malware and in identifying malicious actors in this field. What made it a success? How was it? Was it just individual smartness, super smart, people identifying it? Was it some institutional background? What was it that made it successful? Is there a lesson to learn of how to do it and how not to do it?
Well, there are lessons that I think we can learn right now, and we probably are. That I started doing this, like I started tracking Russia about 20 years ago, and I will tell you that the majority of the really great successes we've had have come from intelligence out of Ukraine. It's where the sort of cutting edge, the bleeding edge of their evolution has always been, and when we track things going on there, we tend to get actually a leg up, right? And so a lot of the conversations I've had since I've shown up in Warsaw have been along those lines. What are we learning out of there? What can you take away? I mean, these actors, like we're talking, the concern I have currently, for instance, is disruption in the rest of Europe. If you want to know what that's going to look like, you just look at precisely what they're doing in Ukraine. So we have a real opportunity. We have a real opportunity there to get ahead of this problem. I think the other thing that we have to keep in mind, though, is that we're risk managers. This is a risk problem. It doesn't go away. We're not like risk eliminators. It doesn't go away. You're from the airspace where safety is a huge thing, and there's a lot of lessons we can learn from safety. Safety's there's a lot as risk managers, but we have to remember that the difference between safety and security is like a tornado doesn't think, how do I get at you, next time, right? Or it doesn't turn, to catch up with you. The adversary does, right? And they're constantly evolving. They're evolving with technology, but they're evolving in response to all of our improvements. One of the things that when I first started doing this a long time ago, I remember we used to, for instance, adversaries from China, we used to print out their spear phishing emails and thumbtack them to our cubicles because we thought they were hilarious. They were poorly written, and now we're watching them target the network edge with some of the most advanced techniques I've ever seen. And they did that because we got better at catching them targeting us with emails. Right, the adversary is absolutely changing, but the reason they're changing is because we have gotten better. Right, we're never gonna get off this treadmill. It won't happen, but we still have to continue to sort of fight. Right, and we have to evolve with them, and we can do that. We can limit their effects that way.
Which means you need to have your own troll factory behind you?
Let's talk, if you want to be better than them, right, you have to have as much visibility as possible so that you can predict what they're doing and evolve with them. And the best way to do that is to get as much visibility as possible. The threat actors that generally we're talking about here are spies. They take a lot of care in you not finding out what they're doing. And so what you want is partnerships that slowly open up that visibility, right? You're collecting information from essentially crime scenes and slowly gathering that data until you have a bigger view of the criminal, right? That's what we have to do. And the real opportunity right now is in Ukraine, right? And honestly, helping Ukraine has actually been one of the ways that we've learned a lot, in operating there. We've learned a lot, and it's actually forwarded our ability to help elsewhere.
Fascinating, very, very important element of the future. If I can ask Symeon about your reflection of how these developments from what we can see from Ukraine have impacted thinking in the southeastern part of Europe. Do you see any reaction to...
There was a very strong wake-up call, believe me, and I think it was in Europe as well. But I must admit it was a little stronger in Greece. because of our geopolitical situation and our threats and our challenges, if you like. And this is why we managed, or at least we are trying to manage, and tackle through strategic innovation 3 main areas that I mentioned before. The energy, we have these days, actually 1 week from now, we have the PTEC, which is a huge conference of all the ministers of energy, initiated by the US Minister of Energy in Athens, to discuss Greece as a kind of a road bridge, for energy, in Europe. Defense, we spend more than 5% defense lately after Ukraine, trying to, develop the industry as well as the armaments. And of course, population aging, and which is a major issue in our country. I know we have a time limit, but I would like to come back to democracy. And give me only 1 minute to read a few thoughts, which may be of value. I think, the biggest disruption, in my view, is the democratic erosion. And I think while we all focus, and rightly so, on external threats, many states, for internal disruption, from polarization, disinformation, institutional decay, we suffer a lot. And let us be brutally honest. The most insidious disruption, perhaps, may not come from China, Russia, or AI, but from within our own democracies. Martin Wolf says that from Financial Times. And if we cannot restore a sense of shared purpose and legitimacy, no amount of innovation will protect us. Strategic competitiveness begins with political coherence. And let me say also that the Western model of governance, rooted in consensus and legalism, is being stress-tested by the speed and scale of change. Meanwhile, more authoritarian systems are faster, through often at the cost of legitimacy. The West, whatever is left from the West, must find a way to combine agility and accountability. Without this, even the best technological edge, I think, will be squandered. Sorry for this, but
no, thank you so much.
Very
it's
much. Thank you.
very much part of our discussion, and I very much appreciate it. And I'm sure that it is very inspiring to many in the audience as well. Let me ask your questions. Please make sure you have a question, so we can have as many as possible. 1, 2, and for the, yeah.
Yes, André Lezugo-Petri from the Joint European Disruptive Initiative, European ARPA. Actually, building on the last comment, my question, if you say that speed is of the essence, and that speed is actually where authoritarian regimes outmaneuver us, is actually 5% and just a money indicator the right KPI? Isn't that just the speed that should be the KPI? And even, is the 5% actually not making us invest in the war of the past and the materials of the past wars?
Great question.
Maybe it's not enough. I don't know what to say. I'm not a politician, I'm not running a government, but at least we need to try hard with whatever means we have in order to cope on this. But thank you for the question. Someone else can do this?
Maybe to eliminate some element of confusion. Of course, there is also a timeline attached to it. How to reach and when to reach the 3.5 plus 1.5% pledge. My personal concern with that pledge is rather the fact that it's an input indicator, how much you put into it. It's not an output indicator, what you get out of it. And I'm leaving aside all of these political games now. How do I make sure that whatever building roads and so on gets accounted for and so on, so all of this kind of murky maneuvering to make sure the numbers are okay-ish. But that the pure essence is it's an input criterion. NATO is coming up with capability frameworks. That's much more important. Defining its capabilities, but then we go back to our initial dilemma. These capabilities are defined over a very long time frame, and they don't provide the windows that are necessary for very quick speedy innovations that are not predictable per se.
Thank you. One question.
Thank you very much. I'm also building on the last statement because it was a great summary of the situations that we actually have. So, but what can we do? What is actually the way that we can, or not we as a individuals, the politicians, what should be done now?
I do think sometimes we all suffer from kind of a collective depression. We do not see our own assets as they are. How many nations around us envy us for what we have, for the strength of our economies, for the robustness of our science systems, our education, welfare systems, and so on and so forth, including our defense capabilities. Let's be proud of that and move on. Not proud in terms of, okay, we got it, we achieved it, now we can do something else. But let's take some kind of reassertion that we can do it. I think it was Winston Churchill who once said that a fight will be won by soldiers, but a war will be won by nations. So it's a collective attitude that we must display that is optimistic and future-oriented. And if that is possible, we believe in ourselves, we can fix the rest. We can fix our regulatory framework. It's not, it's not the Bible. It's not Moses from Mount Sinai or whatever. You can change even the constitution. You can change it. It happens all the time. You can change the way how grants are given. You can change the way military planning documents are being written and updated and so on. It's not too hard. Yes, it takes a lot of consensus and getting alignment and so on and so forth. But let's focus on that, do that work, and be a bit more optimistic towards the future, please.
That's a great.
I think if I may only say that governments need to take a very good care about resolving the issues of the people of the societies. Social cohesion is extremely important. We need to work very hard for social cohesion. This is, I think, an element, a key element, that we have our societies being raised up and having, as I say, the poor children in the poor neighborhoods to smile one day. I think societies and the world will resolve the problems. But we have to work very hard, and we have to pick up leadership for those issues to be resolved. Sometimes in countries, we've seen that in Greece as well, we selected leaders that unfortunately they didn't deliver at all. Rather, they brought the country to the brink of the catastrophe. So these are my comments to your point.
Thank you so much. We have one question here.
Yes, hello. My name is Nathaniel. I'm a PhD student here at the University of Warsaw, and my question kind of relates to the theme of the topic, which is how can we be more disruptive to the disruptors? Are there ways that we can innovate and essentially fight fire with fire?
Well, from a cyber perspective, I can tell you I had to stop and really literally stop for a couple weeks and try to focus on figuring out what's going on in AI. Like there's such a deluge of constant progress going on that I found myself completely lost. And I started making phone calls and asking people for their advice and reading white papers. And it took a long time for me to sort of starting to feel like I've caught up. And I think we've all got to do that, right? To begin with, it's moving very fast. And the biggest thing that I walked away from all of that though is that we are on the precipice of serious consequences to cybersecurity, for instance, like AI adoption by the adversary. And the answer is probably AI. This will play out in the physical realm too. There's conversations about drones, like AI drones being fought by other AI drones. It's the reality. It's the only way that you're going to be able to keep up with this space. And that's what we're thinking probably is going to happen in cybersecurity too. We're looking at a problem of scale. There's going to be a lot more 0 days and vulnerabilities as a result of AI. We're looking at a problem of AI-powered intrusions. So right now, a human gets on a server and figures out a way to get to the next place, figures out a way to steal what they want to do, and it takes step by step. All that's going to be in computer time. It's going to be taking seconds, but it's also going to be persistent. They're going to be able to do it again. And the answer most of us are coming up with is we're going to have to fight that fire with fire, right? We're going to have to be able to get inside their decision loop, right? And the only way to do that is using AI ourselves. So that's the future that that we believe that we're going to have to we're facing. That means we're going to have to embrace the technology as well. You cannot opt out. Like I've had this conversation, and I realize I'm an American in Europe, and it's and from Google, and it's a little awkward. But I've had this conversation. You can't opt out. The adversaries have opted in. Everybody else has opted in, right? They're using it. Whether you use it or not, they would prefer that you not use it. We have to embrace it now to keep up.
Thank you. One question here in the front.
Hi, I'm Paula Hanosz from the Polish Ministry of Climate and Environment, and I would like to return to this idea of resilience and how do we build domestic social resilience, economic resilience, but also environmental resilience. And my question also harks back to the security of critical infrastructure, particularly energy and water infrastructure. What role do you see in the innovation of green tech and climate tech, but also policy innovation in increasing the energy security and water security for citizens? Thank you.
That's a good topic. I'm based out of Hamburg, and in Hamburg we have the Military Training Institute, which is in charge of training higher rank officers. And I've been engaged into modules that link environmental protection, climate protection, with the defense agenda. And it's not easy, because you have these old school generals that think that diesel is good. And PV is bad. And so how do you reconcile this? And then it took quite a few approaches, actually. And then first, we tried to outsmart them and say, look, I mean, the Americans are now thinking about their strategic islands in the Pacific and how they will be affected by rising water levels. So they're moving away their strategic bombers and find other places. So climate change also has an element of how do we tackle with the new reality. So adopting. That's one paradigm shift. So okay, they understood it to some extent. And then came the more difficult part, which was like, okay, how do we contribute to prevent climate change? And I never really succeeded into that one, except for a few solar panels on garrisons and so on and so forth. So some kind of alibi projects that are helpful, but in the big balance are neglectable. Third chapter, and now everybody's listening, is how do we increase resilience? We are not sure in a world of electronic vehicles that we will find a gas station all along the way for our tanks. So maybe we need to reconsider the mix of petrol, electrical vehicles, other vehicles, and make ourselves more robust through that. And that's a chapter where everybody is on board. And that's the discourse that we're currently having, with a lot of different measures. Some are quick fixes and others are really, really long runners. But I think the topic is on the table. It's a completely different situation than the one that we had 10 years ago when we tried starting off with our journey.
From a security perspective, I think there's two ways to think about it. If you are an adversary and you're trying to affect or impact an area, you're looking for choke points, right? And so, a lot of our systems currently have been built for efficiency, right? And so you essentially are, when you build for efficiency, you build a giant pipeline, for instance, to move things from one place to one. That's a choke point in a military sense. It's a huge opportunity, right? And so the answer from a military sense or for security sense may be to decentralize those assets. And I think in most cases that may actually be a great answer. I will say, what we have learned, though, I have learned protecting critical infrastructure for a very long time, is that the issue with decentralized assets is oftentimes they are involved in, they receive less security. Because when you have sort of an efficient single place to put all your assets as far as security, you have a very robust security mechanism. If you think about water assets, and this is a case in the United States, a lot of our water assets are protected by one IT guy, and he's the only person who's there doing security and IT and keeping this thing running at the same time, and he is not getting he doesn't have access to intelligence or any of that stuff, right? And we have seen Russian actors reach out and break those things, right? So there is some you can break smaller things in those cases, but I think overall they're probably more secure in some sense as well.
On this cheerful note, I would like to thank our speakers because I think we have had an amazing insight and knowledge of expertise from an amazing regional as well as professional backgrounds. And I very much appreciated the ideas that we had. I came out a lot more optimistic than we were at the first questions, that I was at the first questions. So thank you so much for your insights, and please join me thanking our speakers.